Good evening and welcome to Monday Motivation. Yes, tonight we are talking about problem solving. In the space of thought, the number one question, in fact there are two of them, but the number one question that I always get asked by adults is this: how do I do it? And the one that is almost on the same is, what do I do? And that is indicating the reality that a lot of us are struggling with figuring out how to come up with solutions and how to solve problems. I want us to go back a little bit to how is it that when adults with full competence intellectually, full competence in terms of emotions, fully grown physically, and with vast amount of experience, how is it that they're still struggling with coming up with solutions and solving problems? The answer, again, as we often do, is back in the journey of our childhood. Starting off, of course, with when we are born. I mentioned this quite a lot because it is so true that when a child is born and they're going through the process of developing, there is an excitement about the fact that they will get to a point where they're fully competent, and we get excited when they say their first word, when they go dada, we clap their hands. When they take their first step and they're standing up, we clap hands. And throughout the process, when they put together the first sentence and they're discovering various sorts of skills and abilities as children, there is celebration that happens because we're understanding that they are growing. However, this kind of takes a little bit of a different turn, especially around the time that children start to go to school, right? There's a point in the beginning where they're asking questions, we're excited even in school, but there's a point where raising your hand carries a certain degree of risk. And that happens when things like, I ask a question and then it's regarded as being stupid and then I get laughed at. Or I'm asking a question because I don't understand and the teacher is saying that the question is not a smart question. And then I realize that if I ask questions, there's a risk of exposing my intelligence or lack thereof, and I start to withhold. Another thing that happens is this: when children are asking questions, we start to call them disobedient, that they don't listen. We start to call them disruptive. We start to attach all sorts of negative judgments on this crucial process of growth, which unfortunately then in those foundational sensitive stage of development, they make a very strong impression on the psyche of a child. And then we learn along the way that if you don't know the answer, it's risky. And if you're asking questions when you don't know the answer, it may actually lead in you being viewed in a negative light. And so when we are older, one of the things that a lot of us as adults are looking forward to, we're looking forward to being able to make those independent decisions without having to consult with any other party, whether that party be our teachers or our parents. But we're looking forward to that moment where we can make our own independent decisions. But the risk with that is that we're thinking that independence means not asking other people or not going through the process of inquiry. And this is part of the reason why you find that so many adults don't know how to solve their problems. So how then do we get into that space of learning how to solve problems? The question is always about one thing, and that one thing is what? Results. Are your results the best that you can ever find? We look at the results from many different angles. We look at the quality of results, which means the impact. We look at the amount. When you are working on something, how many times can you duplicate that? How much of that result are you able to get? So if, for example, we find ourselves in a situation where I am doing something, but I don't get the result that I want, I'm not passing that exam, I'm not breaking even as a business and getting to level 1, breaking even in terms of the profit. Or maybe let's say that as a public speaker, I'm finding it difficult to get to the point. I need to ask questions around crucial things. And one of those crucial questions is the question of functionality. Is what I'm doing functional? And when we look at the functional, we look at two other crucial components. We're looking at processes and we're looking at activities. So for example, if I'm doing what I'm doing, are the activities that I'm doing leading to the quality of results that I want, to the amount of results that I want? If they're not, then I'm going to look at the processes. I'm going to look at the laws that I follow, and crucially, we look at three different things. We look at, number one, the actual activities, which will determine the methods that I'm adopting, that I'm using. Number two, I'm going to look at the amount of time that I'm spending. And then number three, I'm going to look at the kind of resources that I'm deploying to carry out that activity. If I'm able to look at those three things, I'm going to see if I'm spending too much time, I am more likely using too much resources. If I'm using too much resource, I am very likely saving up on time, but the likelihood is that it may also be impacting the outcome, the amount of results that I'm trying to get. And so you're always continuously doing this dance of looking at the results, of looking at functionality, which then helps you to look at the processes that you're employing, which then looks to look at the amount of time you're spending, the amount of resource that you're spending, and the actual methods, which also talks about the energy that you are deploying as you are performing something. This is such a crucial framework to have when you're asking questions about problem solving. What makes something a problem? It'll make something becomes a problem when it is not aligning with the aims, with what I'm trying to achieve, when it fails to reach or to hit that target. I'll give another simple example. Sometimes when I'm doing counseling, let's say talking about a married couple, and then you see that they're screaming at each other, or maybe one of them prefers to scream as a way of expressing their anger. I'll say, okay, I understand that you want to express anger because you want to let the other person know that you are dissatisfied about either what they're doing or about the environment or whatever it is that is happening. The question that we have to ask is your method of yelling and screaming the best way to achieve the result of explaining your frustration or of expressing your frustration? Because the reality is that the human psyche responds to any kind of extreme action towards it in a reactive manner. When something loud hits you, hits your ears, you're going to reflexively react almost in a violent manner. Similarly, if something shocks you, you're going to react. So when you are having a discussion, for example, you're screaming at somebody, naturally, the natural response is to react. But when somebody's reacting, are they cognitively responding? Are they applying the intellectual in the best way possible? No, they're not. And so if your action leads to somebody not responding in the best way possible, are you then achieving the results that you want? And then that helps you then to determine whether or not your methods are the best methods that you should employ when you are addressing that particular problem. I talk about this a lot even in terms of leadership. The leader would say to me, but you know what, I don't want anybody to respect me, and I want everybody to act in time, and I want them to do their job. Fantastic, we get it. The question is, your methods, are they leading to the best results possible? And if they're not, is there not a way for us to look at the processes that you are applying to come to the better solution? And one of the ways that you do that, I'm going to give you a quick, simple framework. The first thing is identify the problem, of course. What is the problem? What makes it a problem? Have a broader understanding of what makes it a problem. Number two, assess the problem. And one of the things that you use to assess the problem is that you have to look at objective reality. Objectivity is a crucial component of critical thinking. And objectivity is looking at things the way that they are, not how you want them to be or how you wish them to be. And a simple example is that if I'm wanting to walk forward, obviously I'm going to put one foot in front of another. So if any other method of moving with my feet might not, it might still achieve the movement forward, but it might not be the best way possible. An objective reality is that I have to realize what is in my environment, who is in my environment, what is happening in my environment, how is it impacting everybody, how is it impacting me, and not just look at how it is impacting me. The third thing that you're going to do then is plan. As opposed to just coming up with a solution, put together your components, put together what you've gathered. What information have you gathered? Who is there that can be able to possibly help? Where is the problem impacting? Who is it affecting? What is it affecting at the end of the day? You see, here's a crucial thing about problem solving. It's the questions we ask. Unfortunately, many of us ask questions that don't help us to get to the solutions. They normally ask us questions that make us focus so much on the problem at the expense of exploring what is possible in terms of the solution. The questions you ask will always determine the answers you get. The answers you get are going to determine the decisions you make. The decisions you make are going to determine the outcomes from those particular decisions. And ultimately, those particular outcomes are then going to determine what the results are. And so it's important then to be aware of those particular questions, because if you don't have the right questions, you're always going to come up with the wrong answers. And then the fourth thing is that once you've come up and you've planned it, now it is important to create those solutions. Create multiple solutions, come down to at least 3 of the best, and then see out of the 3 which one is the best. Implement the next step, implement those solutions that you've come up with, but have time to be able to monitor, to reevaluate as you continue with the process of improvement. And so it is important in this process of becoming a problem solver to understand and to accept your own gaps of understanding, gaps of knowledge due to experience, due to a lack of exposure, due to a lack of tenure. All of those aspects, it's important to be aware of them, but to have a strong belief in your own ability to apply your intellect, your experience, your knowledge, your abilities to identify, to come up with a solution and to implement that solution. Because if you don't believe that you can come up with a solution, then you open yourself up to getting solutions from other external parties, which may not, again, line up with the results that you are trying to achieve. So to become a problem solver, it is important to realize that you are a problem-solving entity. And look at your results, and then from there, start to work your way backwards. My name is Jabu Zwane. Thank you so much for tuning in onto Monday Motivation. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the programming. We'll be together again next week.